Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. It's been an eventful couple of weeks here for Purdue basketball. Most recently, Purdue snapped a 3-game losing skid with a blowout win at Maryland just a little bit earlier here today as I'm recording this. We're going to talk about all things here. The last time we talked was after the Illinois loss, and plenty has changed since then. Purdue loses at Indiana. Purdue wins at Maryland. We're going to talk about what's gone into the skid, what really matters, what doesn't, what's real, what's not for Purdue as it kind of makes the turn of Big Ten play here with 9 games to go in the regular season. Really see what Purdue can do here moving forward and what's realistic in a crowded Big Ten. Plus, the football schedule was released on Tuesday. We'll close with a couple of thoughts on that and how it stacks up for Barry Odom. If you don't, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're here every week, all the way through basketball season into the summer. Be here as much as possible during the summer. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a thing. And be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. You can always send in questions for the show. Do it there on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. You can email the show, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. But as I said, it's been an eventful week here since we talked last. Purdue loses 72-67 at Indiana and then goes to Maryland and wins 93-63. And what I'm going to do here is talk about the tangible stuff because, look, it was very apparent in the loss at Indiana in that first half that Purdue's want to was not enough. Purdue's effort was not enough. I'm not going to sit here and delve into why or theories or things like that because I'm not there. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not around it to know what's being said, what's going on, but obviously, the effort in the first half against Indiana was an abomination. It was better in the second half. Purdue's, kind of hoping that first half at Indiana was a rock bottom because that was ugly. Purdue had been just fine for the first 10 minutes or so, and then it just fell apart. And Purdue went into the locker room down by 11 and put itself in a position where it was almost impossible to come back, and Purdue almost did. But Indiana made the plays late to win it. Purdue looked much more connected on Sunday, and we'll kind of get to that here at the end. It was a much better effort. Maryland is not good. This is a really bad Maryland team. Maryland is starting to look like a team that was completely pieced together by a first-year coach and has no idea what it is right now. And a lot of these guys probably have no idea where they're going to be next year because it's not going to be Maryland. That's just one of the side effects when you have a first-year coach with an entirely new team that is terrible. It kind of just happens like that. But, I'll say this is just one thing that I have always wondered about, and it was something that I'm probably the only person on earth that noticed, but after the Rutgers game back in December, I was watching the post-game player interviews out in the hallway there at the rack, and Trey Kaufman-Renn talked about how Purdue hadn't really talked about winning a Big Ten title, that all the focus was on a national championship, and I just... Not that this team doesn't care about winning the Big Ten, because I'm sure it does, but I can only help but wonder really what the focus is for some of these games. When a game is getting away from you in the Big Ten, does it feel the same way when you are so dialed in on a national title? I don't know. I'm not saying it's the wrong approach to take. These guys know a hell of a lot more about it than I ever will. It just... That line really always stood out to me as interesting to say out loud, and at times I've wondered about it this year, but that isn't what has gotten Purdue beat, or I guess it's past tense now, what got Purdue beat on its 3-game losing streak, because I didn't think Purdue's effort was is big of an issue against UCLA or Illinois. Purdue just got beat in those games. And what's gotten Purdue beat is Purdue's personnel being used against it. And what do I mean by that? Well, last season, Purdue didn't rebound well enough, and it had no semblance of rim protection. And you saw that be a massive issue for Purdue when it gave up a lot of second chance points and teams were scoring at will at the rim against Purdue last year. Because Trey Kaufman-Renn was playing a lot of the 5. He was getting in foul trouble to where he couldn't foul because he was the only destination player Purdue had in its front court. And it was a fatal flaw for Purdue. It was one that, ultimately got it beat because Purdue had to play a lot of havoc defense off of baseline out-of-bounds plays with no rim protection. And Braden Smith drops to play free safety, and the inbounder gets the lay-in from Houston. It is what it is. Purdue went out to solve that problem, though, when Oscar Clough came in and Daniel Jacobson came off of his injury season that will be a red shirt. Purdue made the bet that size and improved rebounding would take this team to the next level. And right now, I think it's best to say it's been a mixed bag. Now, is Purdue better this year than it was last season? Absolutely. That's inarguable. Purdue is a better team than it was last year. But Trey Kaufman-Renn is a bit of a tricky player. He's not your modern-day four-man necessarily that you think of like a Robbie Hummel, a Vince Edwards, a guy at the 4 who can beat you off the bounce, is a real three-point threat, can do a lot of things. He's very much your 80s, 90s style power forward, but he's not big enough to be a 5. Because at that point, you get into the problems that Purdue had last season where you can be a good team. You can win a lot of games like that, but your upside is a little bit limited because he is smaller. He's 6'9". He's not a Hulk. He's not as big at 6'9" as like Caleb Swanigan and Travion Williams were. He's a little bit thinner. Just a different body type, but he needs a lot of space. He's a great scorer. He's one you have to build around. He's too good of a scorer to not build around, and he's become a better passer this year too. But he needs a lot of space to operate. He is not a vertically imposing player the way Zach Edey was. Zach Edey was so good at getting position that by the time he caught the basketball, he usually could just turn and score, or a one dribble move and get into his shot. Trey Kaufman-Renn needs a lot of space to dribble into his looks, to get to his angles, and he's really good at it. He's really good at it, but it takes a lot of space, and when you're playing alongside another big guy, it gets a little bit tricky sometimes to do that. The space gets real condensed on you. It's not a coincidence that Trey Kaufman-Renn's first 20-point game of the season, and as of now, his only 20-point game of the season, came against Indiana when down the stretch, Purdue went small, playing Jack Benter at the 4 and Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 5 a lot. That's not a coincidence. But this Purdue team isn't built to play with him at the 5. Purdue built this team to play him at the 4. It got Oscar Clough and Daniel Jacobson under the pretense that those two were going to account for 40 minutes per game at the 5. It went out and got Liam Murphy and essentially made this, hey, Trey Kaufman-Renn's our 4, and then whoever wins this position battle between Jack Benter and Liam Murphy, you're going to get the minutes behind Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 4. And that's how Purdue was going to play. How you answer this is the difficult part, because Purdue can't really play small the whole game. You can do it in spurts, and you saw it be effective against Indiana a little bit, but it's not the be-all, end-all. The size has helped Purdue. Purdue's a better rebounding team. Oscar Clough is a really good player. Daniel Jacobson is going through some freshman ups and downs, but he's done some good things for you, and he's certainly a guy that you put a lot of resources into, put a lot of effort into, because the upside is there. The size is being weaponized against Purdue, though, because you saw it. Indiana did a good job of it, and some of this is matchup dependent because Purdue was fine against Maryland, and I know some of this has to do with defensive communication, defensive lapses, how you follow defensive rules, but Purdue got switched to death against Illinois. Purdue got switched to death against UCLA. Indiana spread the ball around well enough to where Purdue was living in scramble drill. None of that is conducive to success, and when you're bigger, you're also slower because Trey Kaufman-Renn is not exactly fleet-footed at the 4, and then Oscar Clough and Daniel Jacobson are centers. When you're playing teams that can really spread you out, centers aren't going to be your answer there. Purdue has to find a way to make it work a little bit more. You saw Daniel Jacobson in a lot of drop coverage against Maryland. Part of that, Maryland's not a great shooting team. Was that part of the calculus? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know what Purdue's game plan is, but teams are exploiting that lack of quickness. Teams are exploiting the lack of great on-ball defenders Purdue has, because I don't know that it really has any. It's a defense that's built much more on containment, much more on team defense than one-on-one stuff, and that's fine. That can be effective, but you have to be really dialed in. You have to be really in sync with one another. Purdue was not that against Illinois. Purdue was so far from that against Indiana. And the defense is what got Purdue beat in those 3 games, especially the Illinois and the Indiana games. And you can look at the Indiana game and just say, well, Indiana only scored 72. You can win allowing 72, and that's true. You can. But when you allow 1.4 points per possession in the first half on the road, you're not going to win. That's a stat that if you just say that, you know you're probably not going to win that game. You give Purdue credit because it looked a lot better against Maryland. It's not a good Maryland team. Maryland turned it over 12 times, though. It didn't shoot well. A lot of that was Purdue's doing. But now Purdue has to show that it can do that against better competition, that it can do that against the top of the Big Ten. Because right now, as you look at Purdue's resume, it's a little bit different than we thought it would be. Some of the games that were supposed to be really big wins or really big opportunities, maybe not so much anymore. Alabama is really going through it right now a little bit. They're 14-7, 4-4 in SEC play. Not as great as maybe you thought at the start of the year. Auburn is 14-8, 5-4 in SEC play. Decent. These are tournament teams, but they're not top 4, top 5 seeds. Iowa State, still really good. Texas Tech, good. That's a good team. Purdue beating that team by 30 is really impressive. That's aged tremendously well, but they did just lose it to UCF. Not a great loss. Some of these teams that you were really thinking might be big-time tests haven't been as much. So as you get into this stretch coming up after Oregon, how well can you play defense there? Because that's a really big question, and that'll give you an answer as to what Purdue's ceiling is, if you ask me. This is a big stretch right now. I had said it after the Indiana game. I said, hey, if there is a good time to go through it and have to band together and figure some things out, this is probably it, because Purdue got back to West Lafayette late on a Tuesday. It had a Sunday game at a terrible Maryland team. It now has 5 full days off before Oregon comes in. Oregon's bad. Oregon's about to tip off against Iowa, but Oregon has 1 power conference win this year. It's 8-13. It's 1-9 in Big Ten play. Its 2 best players are out, Shellstad and Biddle. Those dudes aren't playing. So Purdue has a pretty advantageous matchup there inside Mackey Arena. And then you really go into a gauntlet where it's at Nebraska, at Iowa, 3 in a row at home, Michigan, Indiana, Michigan State, and then you get a couple away games against Ohio State and Northwestern. But this 5-game stretch after Oregon is a real bear. That's a real challenge. This is where you have to find that connectiveness. You have to find the next counter punch to see what works, because basketball is a long season. You get some things figured out, then you have to tweak some things because they get figured out by the opponent, and then you have to, it's a never-ending chess match a little bit. But anything you can do during this period of time to make yourself better is really important. That's a big stretch. There's a lot of basketball left to play. Did Purdue put itself behind the 8 ball in the Big Ten race here? Yeah, it did. The Big Ten is really good at the top this year. The bottom of the Big Ten is abysmally bad. You've got 4 teams outside the top 100 at KenPom, with Minnesota not terribly far inside the top 100. But you also have 5 of the top 12. Michigan, Illinois, Michigan State, Purdue, and then Nebraska. You've got some teams in the 20s and 30s. Iowa at 22. Indiana 33. UCLA 37. Wisconsin 39. This is a pretty good conference this year. And when you have 3 losses, 11 games in, boy, as I look at this right now, I don't know that Purdue can really afford to lose another Big Ten game and feel great about its chances to win the league. And look, if you go 16-4 and you don't win the league, you tip your cap. I mean, that no one's ever gone better than 17-3 in the 20-game era. So we'll see if it happens. But you're behind the 8 ball a little bit. You also control your own destiny for the most part. I mean, Illinois going to only lose 1 or 2 more games? I don't know. Illinois looks really good. Illinois looks like a national title contender right now. But some of the games it has left, it's got to go to Breslin. It's got to play Michigan. Got to go out to the West Coast still. That's never easy. Anything can happen there. Michigan's got to play Michigan State. It's got to go to Purdue. Got to go to Ohio State. That's never a breeze when you're Michigan. There are big games left on these schedules, and all Purdue can do is control itself. It's gotta find ways to win. And look, Purdue is going to go as far as its stars take it. Fletcher Loyer snapped out of his cold spell, which was a welcomed sight for everybody. It was inevitable. You knew it was going to happen. If you didn't think it was going to happen, I don't know what to tell you, because there were 3.5 seasons of data to tell you he was going to snap out of it. But the vitriol around him the last couple of weeks got rather uncomfortable. That was something else for a guy who has started every game he's ever played, won almost every game he's ever played at Purdue, and scored over 1,500 career points at Purdue. He's now second all-time in made 3-pointers. We'll see. It's probably going to depend how far Purdue plays into the postseason if he breaks Carson Edwards' school record. But, as Matt Painter said in the post-game press conference at Maryland, he said, he goes through stretches where he struggles, and then he goes through stretches where he looks like the best shooter in America. And for Purdue's sake, it hopes that this is going to be one of those stretches over the next 10 to 15 games that really gets Purdue deep into the postseason. Trey Kaufman-Renn has had a few good games here. He rebounded really well against Maryland. He had his 20 points against Indiana. He's playing well. His role is different this year. It just is, as we talked about. He's playing a different role, but he's being effective in it right now. These last couple of games have been really good for him. And then Braden Smith, obviously. He's shooting really, really well right now. You'll take it. He's just magnificent, man. He's magnificent. He is, you can argue whether Keaton Wagler gets Big Ten Player of the Year over him, but I don't know. I don't know who else would at this point. Braden Smith's just been awesome. He's been absolutely awesome. He's scoring at a high level. He's passing at a high level. Oscar Clough's in there. These are the guys, though, that are going to determine how far Purdue goes. We can talk role players all we want, but you've kind of seen it here. Fletcher Loyer went into a slump, and Purdue wasn't playing tremendously well. Even some of the games that Purdue was winning, it was doing so, and I don't want to get too hyper gambling focused here, but Purdue wasn't covering the spread. Now he comes out, makes a bunch of threes, Purdue wins by 30. Purdue needs these guys. They're the guys you're going to ride and die with. They're your seniors. They've been here for 4 years. But that's kind of where Purdue is here. It's in a good spot, all things considered. It's 18-4. Is a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament out of the picture? Probably. You'd really have to win out. If you win out, you're fine. You're a 1 seed. You might be the number 1 overall seed. If you win out, you're going to have some unreal wins. But realistically here, Purdue's just got to do what it can do, and it's got to make this week matter. It's got to really make this week matter. I know everyone wanted to jump all over the players only meeting, and can we stop with acting like Braden Smith having a podcast is like tanking this team's season? I mean, come on. I've been doing this for 6 years. I think you guys are vastly overestimating the difficulty and amount of time it takes to record a podcast once a week, especially when he's probably not doing any episode prep. He's just hopping on and talking. But nonetheless, the players only meeting is going to get a lot of pub. It is what it is. It's what every team does when the season's not going well. They have a players only meeting. If Purdue really turns this thing around and finishes strong, then that's going to be, the players only meeting did it. If not, the players only meeting will fade into oblivion and go by the way of the dodo bird. We'll see. But you need this to be the week that really fuels it, because the next time you get a prolonged break is, I guess you have 5 days between Indiana and Michigan State, and then you don't really get another one. So this is a nice time for Purdue here to fuel up, spend some time in the comfort of its own building, and really gear up for a stretch that's going to make or break the regular season. I had a question about what are your thoughts on getting Liam Murphy more time by playing small? Trey Kaufman at the 5, Jack Benzer at the 3, Liam Murphy at the 4. Man, I don't know. I think there are real concerns about Liam Murphy defensively. It was a struggle early on in the year when he was playing minutes, when Trey Kaufman was out for those first couple of games. He's not particularly athletic. He doesn't move super well. He doesn't jump super well. Playing the 4 spot's going to be a big ask there when you're already small. That lineup gets tough rebounding. Now, positionally, could Jack Benzer rebound well for the 3? Yes, but you're giving up a lot at the 4 and 5 there. That's kind of what I mean by this team just isn't built for Trey Kaufman to play at the 5. You can do it for stretches. That's no problem. You can play a 4-minute stretch with Jack Benzer at the 4, Trey Kaufman at the 5. You can play an 8-minute stretch like that. But if you're going into a game, you're not getting more than a couple of 4-minute sequences a game with that as your lineup, just because that's not how you're built. You're not built for that to be a strength. And then, will Fletcher Loyer go down as the best Boiler in terms of objective stats that seemingly is wildly disliked by the fan base? I don't know if he's wildly disliked or not, but the vocal opposition to him is really bizarre. I get it. I mean, if you look at Fletcher Loyer walking down State Street, your first thought probably isn't that he is a basketball player who's going to go down in the top 20 in Purdue career scoring. He's pretty thin. He's pretty wiry, but he's really good. He's a really good player. He does a lot of winning things. It is what it is. Someone's always got to be the scapegoat. He's just probably the best player that is being used as the scapegoat. We're not that far away from it being Isaiah Thompson and Sasha Stefanovic. Like that was a real stretch, and then Fletcher Loyer just walked right into that role, I guess. But it is what it is. I've kind of given up hope at this point on trying to convince people that he's actually good, because if you don't see it by now, I guess it's just never going to happen. But this episode is brought to you by me. Yes, me. When I'm not watching sports, or more accurately talking about them, I'm talking insurance with the people of Indiana. As an agent with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, I'm here to help you protect what you've worked hard to achieve. From home and auto to life and business insurance, I'm here to help you. Give me a call at 317-846-5861 or email me, jordan.jones@infarmbureau.com. And let's protect you from life's everyday risks. Purdue's football schedule got released on Tuesday. Big Ten Network did an hour-long special, and it took a little bit to get to the Boilermakers, but the schedule got released. I'm not going to read it off here. You can find it online. Give you a second here to pull it up on Google, pull it up on Twitter. All in all here, the scheduling dynamics are not bad. And I say that we already knew who the opponents would be. We knew that the non-conference was set. We knew what teams Purdue was going to play at home, what teams it was going to play on the road in Big Ten play. We just didn't have the sequence. Now, here are the things I look for in a schedule. Number one, it's what anyone looks for. When is the bye week? And for Purdue, it comes in the middle of the season. It's a week 8 bye this year. Now, this is a 1 bye week season. It becomes even more important in this situation. Everyone gets 1 bye week. Just as the last couple years, everyone's gotten 2. It all depends how the calendar falls. How many weekends are there between Labor Day and Thanksgiving? That's how it's determined. Because week 1 is Labor Day, regular season ends on Thanksgiving. Just depends on how many extra Saturdays you get in there. But it's a 1 bye week year. You want your bye week to come at the most advantageous time. Like you go up I-65 to Northwestern, who has a week 2 bye this year. That is brutal. It doesn't get worse than that. That's awful. You play 1 week, you have your bye, and then you're playing 11 games in 11 weeks. That's miserable. This is perfect for Purdue. It is a week 8 bye. You'll have played 7 games. You get your bye, and then you have your closing stretch of the season. When is the West Coast trip? That is the new thing to watch for in the Big Ten. Not because it's like basketball. Basketball is a little bit different. You're out there to play 2 games, and then you're coming back and you're playing a game a couple days later usually. Football's a week sport, and it's a little bit different, but it's never easy to go out there and play. The Big Ten teams haven't had, I should say the traditional footprint Big Ten teams haven't had a great amount of success out there. It's a week 3 trip. You go to UCLA in week 3. It's going to be hot. Good luck. Los Angeles in September doesn't sound fun to me, but it's not the end of the world. You'd rather do that than do what you did this past year and fly out there after you've played Ohio State and Michigan in back-to-back weeks and you're just battered and bloodied. This beats that. UCLA's in year 1 of a new coach. Maybe some things are still getting figured out early on in year 1. Bob Chesney's a good coach, but we'll see. He's not exactly taking over a smooth sailing ship out there. They open up with Cal and San Diego State, so it's not like they're easing into anything. And I think the bonus of this too is the game you get on the back end is Notre Dame. Now, that can be taken one of two ways. Obviously, you want to get to the point where you're considering that a game that you can have hope of winning. Right now, I'm not there. I'm not viewing that as a winnable game at all. So, you come back for a game you're not going to win anyways. You'd rather do that than come back from the West Coast to play, Minnesota or Maryland or someone that you feel you can beat. Instead, you get Notre Dame, and it's almost hey, we're going to lose this anyways type of game. Not the end of the world. You'd never hear Barry Odom say that. You'd never hear the team say that. That's just my opinion. But you'd rather for Notre Dame to come in a bad scheduling spot than someone else. Get a lot of early home games, too. 5 of Purdue's first 7 games are at home. You've got to build momentum this year. It is a must. The team has to do it, the program has to do it, and the fan base needs it. Purdue's won 7 games over the last 3 years. It's not been successful. You've got to give people reason to believe. And if you get these games at home, you can steal an extra win. Boy, that's big. You're not going to beat Notre Dame, but you're going to get Indiana State. It sets up a massive game in week 2 against Wake Forest. We'll talk about that plenty as we get closer to football season. That's a huge one at home. Minnesota comes there. Washington makes the trip all the way across the country. Boy, there's been a little turmoil out there with the DeMond Williams situation. That's not a bad deal for Purdue. It's not bad. And then the other thing you kind of look for now more than you used to, what teams could have a fired coach during the season? That doesn't necessarily always pan out, but Purdue gets Maryland and Wisconsin. And this was one of the first things I noticed when I saw that. I thought, hey, Wisconsin's going to roll it back with Fickle. Maryland's going to roll this back with Loxley. But if these 2026 seasons get ugly early, boy, the trend we're seeing is these coaches are getting fired earlier and earlier. You dealing with interims? Sometimes you get a 1-week bump. Sometimes it helps a team play better. Sometimes, now in the transfer portal era, that the players are wondering where they're going next, the coaches are wondering where they're going next. It just all starts to fall apart. And Purdue gets both of those teams late in the year, in the month of November at Ross-Ade Stadium. I don't know how this season's going to go for them. Maybe it goes wonderful. Maybe they're both enjoying momentum and Fickle and Loxley are still there. Maybe it's a hot seat situation where it's just ugly. Maybe they're fired. I don't know. But that's probably a decent deal for Purdue there. So when you add all of this up, this is not an easy schedule by any means. And I don't know that you're ever going to have an easy schedule, especially with the non-conference philosophies that Purdue has embraced in the past. Now, it sounds like some of that could be changing in the future. We'll see what happens. Mike Babinski talked about it in great length in his media availability recently. But, this year, Wake Forest just won 9 games. Not a great Wake Forest program, but it just won 9 games. Notre Dame's a national title contender going into next year. But you look at this slate. Yeah, you go to Illinois, you go to Penn State. I know Penn State's in year 1 with Matt Campbell. Winning there is a real chore. At Iowa, always brutal. Indiana has reloaded pretty well. We'll see about Illinois, but those other 3 games are brutal. Those are rough. And you go to UCLA, which you're taking the West Coast trip. So, look, it's not an easy schedule, but I think the dynamics did Purdue favors here. The way the dynamics really hurt Purdue last season and really hurt Purdue 2 years ago. I think you like this. I think you feel pretty decent about this, and it sets up a massive year. It really does. A year that very well could make or break Barry Odom at Purdue. But that's all I've got for today, guys. We'll do something good next week. Obviously, only one basketball game here, Purdue-Oregon, a game that Purdue should cruise in. I mean, point blank. It's at Mackey Arena. Oregon is a bad team. There is no reason to believe that that should be any type of a contest other than it's basketball. It's an inflated ball that bounces around. We'll see what happens. But after that, it gets real. So we'll have a lot to talk about on next week's show, I'm sure. Send over questions. Do it on Twitter at BoilersBeyond. Email me, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Be here every week. Come join the conversation. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. Stay warm here across the Midwest. Till next time, take care.